Can I say this? I don't like to view things in terms of targets. I know that you need to have targets if you're an activist group and that you need to focus people's minds on it. But I've had very high level experience in Canberra, and I know the devil is always in the detail. And whatever the targets are, however they're managed and manipulated, you'll see that wonderful outcomes should be sought, but I think in the end you'll start to see the erosion of in the fine points, and we've noticed that with the issues I've taken up. So I'm not going to comment about a target, a specific target. I'm going to say this, that if we were elected to Canberra, we'd do what you're doing now. We'd bring people together, we'd bring the political groups together, and we'd say, let's get an outcome that's the highest outcome, highest level outcome we can get for our environment. I'm cautious here. Why I'm cautious is because I don't know what backward agendas operate. But I think they're going in the right way, but how far they're going and why they're going in a certain way, I think I would want to see the briefing notes. I want to see a balance between what they're putting up and how they're explaining it. I explained at the start of this that, I think there's commercial and environment. The environmental drives the commerce. That's the commerce. That's our strength. But I don't know whether in what he's putting forward will deliver that to maximum extent.
What's your gut feeling on it though?
I have a gut feeling
that those
I
briefing
have a
papers
gut
are...
feeling over many years that whatever things perceived to be, they sometimes aren't. And so I believe if you're going to talk about getting a sound environment here, I'd like to see that environment, but I'd like to see the nuts and bolts of what's behind all these agreements and agendas. I think the idea of negotiating with key leaders around the world that's taken up by Kevin Rudd, or whoever might be leader, I think there's merit in that. I think there's a lot of merit in discussions that sometimes are out of the public arena, but I think we can take a strong view of that. But I think it's important here, and this is very worthwhile being aware of this issue, there needs to be a way where those leaders, those world leaders, take the people's view into account. I think sometimes you find that politicians are faced with executive summaries of positions to take, and sometimes they don't reflect what the people want. And I think that's a big problem. So that's why we've developed what's called a public think tank and public lobby. We want a publicly funded think tank and lobby. Look, I don't want to get into the figures, because the problem with figures is I don't know how these figures are measured, but whether you go higher than that or lower than that is going to depend on we're in a transition phase, and I don't have the figures to know what's good or bad for this country in a transition phase. So maybe targets are nice, whether you want to make it mandatory and then you look at the impact of that. But I tend to think, look, it takes years to put up an issue and get industry, and whether it's an environmental industry, whatever, going. So I think in a way mandatory are nice, but there's something about having flexibility, but more of a concern about it than mandatory targets.